News 25 is brought to you by Dr. George Leeks, Parum's optometrist since 1990, offering full spectrum eye care for children and adults. Call today, 727-8300. News is also brought to you by J.K. Nelson Law. Call 727-9900 today for your free consultation. If you need a lawyer, you need Nelson.
Several buildings and dozens of cars are destroyed in a fire. The town puts out one more call to certify and train lifeguards.
You're watching KPVM News 25. Local coverage you can count on.
A family displaced after a high-risk fire ravages their property. It's Monday, June 8th. I'm Janet Errett, in for Deanna O'Donnell. The state fire marshal is investigating the cause of a large fire that destroyed a number of vehicles and other outbuildings at a home on Vicki Ann Road. The smoke could be seen from miles away, and Fire Chief Scott Lewis said that firefighters faced a number of challenges, including high winds.
As we arrived on location, again, we had a windswept fire that involved numerous structures, vehicles, and travel trailers that were located throughout the property. Many of the vehicles were closely located. They also had fuel in their tanks. We had propane, we had other acetylene. We also had explosions that were occurring throughout the property. So this fire occurred in a no hydrant area, so it added to the dynamics. There were no injuries to any of the firefighters. However, there was 2 or 3 the citizens that lived on the property in various travel trailers that were checked out. One was transported for smoke inhalation. It's my understanding there was 9 people living on the property and multiple pets. The pets were all accounted for with the exception of 1 dog was lost in the fire. We actually found another dog located in one of the closely parked vehicles at the rear of the property, and we rescued that dog as well. The windswept conditions really added to the challenges on this fire because it was pushing the fire almost horizontal. So we had to commit additional resources to those locations to make sure that we didn't have it going from one property to the other. It's important to note, though, the primary residential double-wide dwelling in the middle of the property was protected. That was a primary consideration, is to make sure that the occupied living space was protected. Even though it was surrounded by burning material, the crews did just an excellent job making sure that that didn't catch on fire and didn't burn, so that people had a place to stay. The state fire marshal did respond, and it's at this point it does not appear to be intentional, and they're looking at towards an undetermined, but it hasn't been completed yet, and it will be completed over the next several days. So I think one of the challenges we have right now is to make sure that people do understand that this fire occurred in red flag warnings yesterday. So what that meant was high temperatures, low relative humidity, and high winds, as we're experiencing again today. Any type of ignition source in our dry environment will lead to catastrophic results like this. And so we're asking people to be extremely careful, take every necessary precaution to make sure these things don't continue to happen.
To help this family, you can go to GoFundMe and search for House Fire organized by Anisha Rodriguez. Do you want to save the summer season for the Pahrump Community Pool? The town of Pahrump says they need 30 applicants by this Friday, June 12th, in order to train and certify lifeguards in time for the season. Here is the link for the application, nyecounty.net, or call 775-751-6310 or 775-751-6302. Small business owners will find it easier to make use of money they've received from the Paycheck Protection Program. And Will Brooks Brothers become the latest retailer to file bankruptcy protection, and Angela Miles tells us more.
Here's Angela Miles with today's Business First Brief.
Topping our news, President Trump has signed a bill making it easier for small business owners to comply with the rules under the Paycheck Protection Program. That legislation passed by the House and Senate last week makes it possible for struggling companies to use loans over 6 months rather than 2 months, and gives small companies until June 30th to rehire workers. The president says it will be especially beneficial for restaurants and hotels hit hard by coronavirus. Brooks Brothers Brothers is the latest retailer fighting to survive. The upscale preppy chain is reportedly in talks with banks to raise financing. According to CNBC, it's possible Brooks Brothers could file for bankruptcy protection. Brooks Brothers is considered one of the oldest retailers in America. It's been around since 1818.
To find out where you can see us every day, go to businessfirstam.com.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
News 25 is brought to you by Star Nursery, your garden's partner for every bloomin' thing.
The family of the Vicki Ann fire spoke to our camera today to show us the property that was destroyed.
Me and my kids and my husband were inside watching TV, getting away from the heat for a little while. And my dad came running up to the door saying, "There's a fire, there's a fire." And we ran to the back of the house, and it was over there to the side where there was another home right there. And I guess there was a fire started at the gate. I don't know what started it. My husband's friend came into the yard, and he came and knocked on the door and grabbed my husband, and we tried to grab all the hoses. And we had 2 chicken coops back there as well. So my husband was taking the hose trying to get the fire out as I'm trying to get the chickens and ducks and put them in my shirt and take them out because I didn't want them to die. So luckily we got past that part, and I got the animals out, and then my husband's like, "It's too bad." So I had to leave from that area, and it spread so fast in a blink of an eye, I swear. My husband builds cars, and it was all full of cars with a garage right there. And it just, once it hit the garage, it just spread really fast. And the wind was really bad. The fire started coming over here, and luckily the wind was blowing that way, so it was like blowing the whole fire that way. So luckily it missed the structure of the house.
To help this family, you can go to GoFundMe and search for a house fire organized by Anisha Rodriguez. Investigators are trying to find the cause of the fire Monday morning that destroyed a motorhome parked in front of a home on Winery Road in Pahrump.
We dispatched a report of a structure fire. Upon arrival, we found a well-involved motorhome located in the front driveway. It extended, the motorhome itself was fully involved. It was wind-driven fire. It was placed at a high risk. It was extending to the primary dwelling. It had taken out 2 front windows of the house, and it had also gone up underneath the roof surface into the attic space. Crews commenced a quick defensive exterior attack on the RV, knocked down the main body of fire. They then moved to the interior, quickly controlled the fire that was extending within the structure itself. Additional crews went to the rear of the residence and were extending the spot fires that had developed from the high winds. Yeah, there's very little damage done to the primary dwelling. There are some broken windows from the fire, and the fire did get up in the attic space, but crews did an excellent job, controlled that fire. Big difference for us today is the fact that this is a fire in a hydranted area, so crews were able to lay in a large diameter supply line, plenty of water. They didn't have to have resources leaving the scene to go refill. Quick effort, done real well today. Fire's under investigation. It's believed to be accidental in nature. There are some extenuating circumstances that we're also investigating.
Fire Chief Scott Lewis gives us details about the homeless camp that caught on fire.
We had actually 2 fires that occurred in structures in the homeless encampments. One was located a little bit further north between Irene and Mesquite on the alluvial fan. The second one happened behind the Smiths complex. Both were, again, wind-driven fires. It was the right conditions of this whole past weekend. Uncertain as to exactly what the ignition point was, but access was an issue for a fire apparatus. We had to utilize our brush trucks, go great distances. We had to be extremely careful. One was in the evening hours, and actually it was dark, so we had to be really careful with where we were stepping, make sure all the firefighters were safe. The second one occurred in daylight, but there were a number of people in the area that were fleeing. So again, highly dynamic conditions. Fuel load was there, a lot of household trash and other materials. There was a person of interest, and he later, we located him and interviewed him, and it was determined that he thinks he accidentally lit or had a cigarette that he left behind in his camp, and he believes that's what started the fire.
With triple-digit temperatures soon to be upon us this summer season, it's a good time to talk about wildfires. In southern Nevada, over the last decade, more than a third of all wildfires were sparked by humans. Chris Malcolm, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, says we're likely to see a hotter than normal summer, and it's especially important for people to heed red flag warnings.
The outlook is for an above average fire season across a good chunk of the state. And I think one difference over the previous years is that since our winter precip was so low, is that kind of starts opening up some of those higher terrain and larger vegetation for fires, compared to the previous years where we had tons of moisture up in the mountains, kind of put the kibosh on fire. So I think that's one big difference that we see for this year. Now, last year we did luck out, as mentioned before. We didn't have as many red flag warning days as normal, and we didn't have too many windy days. So odds are we may go back to something kind of more normal for this year, just kind of roll the dice type of stuff. So our red flag warnings, that's the bread and butter from the National Weather Service that helps our fire partners prepare for those big days. Red flag warnings, we're trying to introduce them more to the public, kind of definitely don't do stupid stuff to start a fire on any day, but definitely don't do it on a red flag day. That's kind of the general gist of them. And so red flag warnings, we issue them for wind and low humidity and for dry lightning, thunderstorms with lots of lightning. And the predictability on those is different. I think that's an important thing. Those wind and low humidity days, we can often see 3, 4, 5 days in advance and give a nice notice on those. The thunderstorm, dry lightning days, not as much, maybe more like a day or so, sometimes even only about 12 hours. So those are a little bit trickier. But when we do issue those will allow our partners in the fire services to get ready for days when fires, if they do start, they could grow rapidly and get out of control quite quickly. So anyway, that's our take from the Weather Service looking at a hot summer. It's always hot summer, but there seem to be some signals that could be an above average temperature summer going into this year. So
looking at about a 10-year average, approximately 37% of the fires that we respond to on the Humboldt-Toyabe are human-caused fires. And so you look at even last year, that number was higher at 41%. That's a significant part of what we do and what we respond to during the summer. And so a way that the public can help us is to do their part to prevent those human-caused incidents. That would decrease the amount of incidents that we would need to respond to and really help keep our firefighters safe and protected as we go forward through the summer.
We'll be back with more News 25 right after this break.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Mountain West Lawyers, Nye County's injury attorneys. Don't get bullied by insurance companies. Call Jason Ernest and bully them back at 775-727-9500.
Have you been taking walks to beat coronavirus cabin fever? Well, if you're a slow walker, you may want to pick up the pace. Recent research suggests people who walk slower in middle age may age faster and have more brain dysfunction. Cleveland Clinic's Dr. Michael Rosen says physical and mental health go hand in hand.
As you stress your muscles, as you walk faster, you produce hormones and proteins that stimulate your brain to grow and stimulate brain function. So there is some rationale to this.
Researchers looked at more than 40 years worth of data on about 900 people in New Zealand. They studied participants' mental function starting at age 3 and followed them into middle age. Results show slow walking speed at age 45 was associated with accelerated aging and brain decline. Dr. Rosen says it's well known that slow walking speed in the elderly is a sign of deteriorating mental function. However, he says identifying a slower walking pace while still in your 40s gives you an opportunity to intervene.
As early as 45, you could tell these people were on a downhill slope. What does that mean? It means that if you look at your walking speed and it starts to slow, do all the other things for brain health.
To improve brain health, Dr. Rosen recommends stress management, physical activity, speed processing games, and avoiding saturated fats and sugars, to name a few. Complete results can be found online in JAMA Network Open.
Tomorrow is Election Day. Today we feature our final candidate who's running for commissioner in District 3, Lewis Baker.
Well, the campaign, is going to be unusual this time simply because of the mail-in ballots. You know what I mean? It's really going to be difficult to understand how that's going to work. We don't know whether there's going to be more people participating or less people. If I had to guess, I think there's people who become complacent, that they don't realize the importance of the vote. And it's very, very critical to Pahrump for us to move forward, not backwards. Okay, we've had 8 years of different people, okay? It doesn't matter. Why haven't they done anything? We got $100 million in investments in Pahrump through the at least that's what the commission has said. They said that they have $100 million in investments. And I said, well, why don't we just invest some of that in Pahrump? For example, one of the things that's very critical, and I can't stress enough the importance of the homeless. Now, you might think, well, gee whiz, they're homeless, they're bums and this and that, okay? They're humans, number one. Number two, they're desecrating on the highways and the streets and the deserts. That can lead to a pandemic that we've never seen before. Why? Because there's germs and bacteria, it doesn't matter what they put on the, as waste, whether it's number one or number two. What's important is that it attracts flies and everything else, and it can lead to a serious pandemic, worse than what we got now. So we have to address that issue. And how do we address it? Well, first of all, when I was running for Congress in 2016, and I had to stop because, well, I had prostate cancer. So they just knocked me out of the box, and so I couldn't continue. But what I had proposed then was Drifter Park. Now, this was for Las Vegas. Now, what is Drifter Park? Basically, Drifter Park is a park, a big park. It can be 5, 10 acres, depending on the size and the scope, and who is willing to help the public and donate a piece of property. The first thing to do is you get the property. The second thing is to build the infrastructure. That infrastructure is medical facilities. It's housing. When I want to say housing, we're talking about a place for rehabilitation where homeless people would have to go. If they're spotted on the street, they have to go to this location. And then they go through a routine, and it would be administered by the sheriff's department, cadets. Why the cadets? Because they're going to have to be dealing with that if they ever become patrolmen. So they might as well get used to it, and they might as well find out what it is firsthand to deal with these kind of people. Well, what happens is that you get people that you create employment, because some of those drifters, and remember I call it Drifter Park, is they'll find employment right there. In other words, there'll be different things, whether it's doing the laundry or the dishes or, whatever it is, okay? More importantly is it gives the community the opportunity to get new leaders by having the cadets and so forth go over and administer, to supervise it, more supervision than anything else. And as a result of that, we can eliminate that waste problem.
News 25 WeatherCam is brought to you by Lerner and Rowe Injury Attorney's Office in Pahrump. In a wreck, need a check? Call 702-877-1500.
Let's take a look at our WeatherCam. It's a windy day today, rather cool but clear. And we'll be back with more weather after this break.
News 25 weather is brought to you by Dairy Council of Nevada. The splash of cream in your coffee, the dollop of sour cream on your burrito, the melted toasty cheese on your pizza. Undeniably delicious, undeniably dairy. Enjoy what's real.
Okay, we're looking at Fernley with a high of 82 and a low of 51 degrees today. Fallon, 82 degrees high with a low of 49. Carson City had an 80-degree high with low of 46 this evening. Tonopah is 76 degrees with a low of 47 this evening. Goldfield had a high of 78 with a low of 47 this evening. And Beatty is 86 degrees with a low of 55. And Amargosa is 89 degrees with a low of 58. Las Vegas, 90 degrees with a low of 68 degrees. And Death Valley, 100 with a low of 72. Okay, and today currently we're looking at 78 degrees, wind at north-northwest, 19 miles an hour, humidity 8%, and sunrise was at 5:26 a.m. Okay, tonight we have a clear sky with a full moon, low of 54 degrees, wind east-northeast at 9 miles an hour, and humidity at 13%. Sunset will be at 8 p.m. Okay, let's look at our 7-day forecast. Tuesday will be a high of 88 with a low of 61. Wednesday, high of 96 with a low of 67. Thursday, we're going to pick up with winds south-southwest, 15 miles an hour, 99 degrees with a low of 70. And Friday, getting a little cloudy with south-southwest winds, 22 mile per hour winds, and 95 degrees as a high, 62 as a low. Saturday is a clear day, south-southwest winds at 13 miles an hour, 88 degrees for the high, 61 for the low. Sunday, 93 for the high, 66 for the low. Monday, south-southwest, 9 miles per hour, and 97 degrees with a 69 degree low. Okay, and we're going to take a look at the fire victims of the Vicky M fire. We want you to be able to help this family. You can go to GoFundMe and search for House Fire organized by Anisha Rodriguez. And that's it for News 25. I'm Janet Errett. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.